Ryan pulled me into the stairwell between meetings, his phone already in his hand, and he said, "Someone's been asking about me online. I think you need to see this." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. I'd been with Ryan for 8 months by then. Coworkers first, then lunch, then something neither of us said out loud until it was too late to pretend otherwise. And my husband never noticed. Or that's what I told myself every single time I came home 20 minutes late, smelling like someone else's cologne, and he just asked about dinner. 6 years married, quiet guy. It's support for a logistics company, the kind of man who fixes the router without being asked and never raises his voice. I used to think his silence meant safety. I thought it meant I was smarter than the situation, smarter than him. I was wrong about almost all of it. Ryan showed me the messages. Someone on LinkedIn had reached out to him 3 weeks earlier, asking very specific questions. His work travel schedule, whether he was seeing anyone, what hotel he usually stayed at for the Denver trips. Ryan, being Ryan, actually answered some of it. Thought it was a recruiter. It wasn't a recruiter. He traced the profile picture through a reverse image search and got a name. My husband's cousin. Same last name. Same hometown listed. A profile that had existed for less than 2 months. I called the cousin myself, hands shaking so bad I dropped my phone once before I got the number dialed. He'd never made a LinkedIn account in his life. The profile was fake, built from scratch, built by someone who knew enough about Ryan to ask the right questions, someone who knew our schedules, our patterns, the gaps in my evenings. My husband. That was the moment the floor didn't just tilt, it disappeared. I went home that night and looked at things I'd stopped looking at. My location sharing, the one I'd quietly turned off 4 months ago. Back on. I hadn't touched it. There was a cloud backup folder on my phone I never created, syncing photos I thought were private. And on our shared drive, the one we used for tax documents and grocery lists, a folder I'd never seen before, named so plainly I almost laughed at the audacity of it. Receipts. I didn't open it that night. I think some part of me already knew what coward's math I'd find inside, and I wasn't ready yet. For weeks after that, I watched him differently, looking for the tell, the crack, the moment his composure would slip and show me the man underneath who'd built a fake LinkedIn profile and tracked my phone and quietly archived God knows what for God knows how long. It never came. He made coffee the same way, asked about my day the same way, never once looked at me like a man who knew. That's the part that still gets me, even now. He never needed to look at me that way. He already had everything he needed. He wasn't waiting to catch me. He was waiting for the right Sunday. It was an ordinary one. Gray light, leftover coffee, him sitting across from me on the other side of the coffee table like we were about to discuss a mortgage refinance. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even really look angry. He just slid a folder across the table, the kind with a plastic cover, a single word printed on the front in plain black text. Evidence. Inside, everything. Screenshots, location logs, hotel charges I thought I'd hidden well enough. The LinkedIn conversation with Ryan printed and highlighted in 3 different colors like he was prepping for a deposition. Dates going back further than I expected. Months of this, building quietly while I drank my coffee and felt clever. Underneath the folder was a second document, already filled out, already signed, on his line. He just looked at me and said, "I wasn't going to ask if it was true. I already knew. I just needed you to see how long I knew. So you'd understand this was never a question of if. Just when I got tired of waiting." I didn't cry. I want to say I did, because it would make me sound more sympathetic, but I just sat there with my hand on a folder labeled evidence, thinking about every single time I told myself he was too quiet, too distracted, too trusting to ever suspect a thing. He wasn't trusting. He was patient. There's a difference. And I spent 6 years married to a man and never learned it. I signed my line 2 days later. No fight left in me to put up. What would I even argue? The dates were right. The folder didn't lie. He'd made sure of that. People ask me now if I saw it coming. I always say the same thing. I thought I was the smart one in that marriage. I wasn't. I was just the loud one. And he was the one paying attention the whole time. If you found out someone had been quietly documenting everything, would you have seen it coming? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone.